As far as championships go, they don't get any closer than this. Both drivers and manufacturers' titles are on the line. It's Auberlen versus Pobst, BMW versus Audi in the final round of the Speed GT Championship. Hello everyone, I'm Lee Diffie along with Johnny O'Connell and Brian Till in pit lane. Welcome to beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico and the Isla Grande Airport Complex. Wonderful place for a race. We've got terrific weather and a huge crowd in attendance, but this is all about championships and they don't get any closer. Pobst and Auberlen, there's just a 13-point margin between the two. It was 12 until Pobst won the pole yesterday and edged a little further away from Bill Auberlen. We take you through the top 10. We look 6 through 10. But an even closer battle is in the manufacturer standings. BMW just has a 1-point lead over Audi, and there are a lot of nervous and anxious people on pit road. It all went pear-shaped for Bill Auberlen at Road Atlanta. At this particular race, he had a 20-point championship lead. Things going nicely, running toward the front end of the field, and he disappears. A broken half shaft put paid to some points at Road Atlanta. Frustrating times for the PTG BMW driver, and he was pretty hot under the collar. Emotional overload in the PTG pit and a very disappointed Bill Auberlen at Road Atlanta. Randy Pobst capitalized in the best possible way, scoring his first and Audi's first victory of the year.
We had a long discussion that we're going to run a race to win the race, just like any other race, until late in the race. And late in the race, we'll see where everybody is. We'll make some decisions then on just how aggressive to be.
All I want to do is try to win, get the pole, get the fast race lap, go crazy and get to the front and do my job, and then BMW wins the manufacturers if they beat Audi. And all he has to do is protect his fourth, like you said, fourth place, and he's got it licked.
It's the title fight, and it's Auberlen versus Pobst. Let's show you the tail of the tape. Auberlen has 3 times as many wins as Randy does. However, Pobst has a lot more podiums. He has been very consistent. Brian Till, hi first, and who do you think has the advantage?
Lee, you know, coming into the weekend, I would have thought it was the PTG BMWs. They've got the handling, I think, over the Audis, but after looking at this racetrack, it's very tight on the way into the corners, long radiuses on the way out, and guys are having a hard time putting power down, getting wheel spin. That's why I got to think I'm going to give it to the champion Audis right now, because it's almost like being in the rain with this all-wheel drive. They can put the power down coming off, but you know what? It's a brand new racetrack. It's slick, hard racing, a lot of fist shaking going on in the air out there, I'll bet. A lot of bumping and grinding. It's going to be a good one. Hang on.
I guess we'll find out in 50 minutes' time. Time to take a look at the Mazda track map. Johnny, talk us around.
Well, I tell you what, Lee, they have done an amazing job on this circuit. You know, it's the first time here. In many ways similar to Cleveland Lakefront Airport, just smaller. The chicane areas, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, very tight single file stuff. Those areas, though, that are going to be key to these drivers are getting into 7, 9, and especially turn 1. That's where we're going to be seeing most of the passing today.
When we return, we will introduce you to the starting lineup and go racing for the final time this year. Stick around.
ES 330.
Speed Channel's coverage of the Speed GT Championship is brought to you by Toyo Tires, known for performance, tires that fit you. And by BMW. Visit your local BMW center for a test drive. BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Beautiful place here, San Juan, Puerto Rico. We've had a wonderful weekend and the action is hotting up right now. This is how they will line up on the RB starting grid. Randy Pobst, his 3rd pole of the year, alongside Phil McClure. Exactly the same front row as the way we kicked off the season in Sebring. Back on the 2nd row, 2nd Audi factory driver Michael Gallardi will play an important role for Randy Pobst today, and he starts alongside the hard-charging Boris Said. Row 3, can Bill Auberlen do it? Well, he's looking on 2 fronts for BMW and for himself. He wants to clinch the Touring and GT titles. Hans Stuck alongside David Farmer, and David's having his own private battle in the championship, trying to hold off Justin Marks for 7th. And Justin starts on the 5th row alongside Tim Weens. Victor Contreras, his teammate, has done a wonderful job today with his best qualifying effort in 6th. As we look at the remaining positions on the grid, there is a big story missing from the grid. Here we go, off the line, Randy Pobst and Gallardi pounce and lead into turn 1. Here come the PTG BMW gang, but what a start once again from Pobst.
You know, we're so used to seeing that, Lee, those Audis with the Quattro just jump into a quick lead. But, you know, as this race goes on, it's going to be interesting because every race this year we've seen that the Audis can lead the opening laps, but then they start to have tire issues, and that's going to be one of the things we need to watch today.
To address that big story, the driver missing from the lineup, it is Mike Fitzgerald. He is not in this race. Sadly blew an engine and will sit this one out. So it's the two Audis followed by Phil McClure up front. And the field get away to a nice clean start.
And this is certainly the way, you know, when these teams enter this race here, you've got Audi, they're not thinking Drivers' Championship, they're thinking manufacturers. And Bill Oberlin and the PTG gang, they've got the same pressure on. And right now the position is just how Audi wants it. You know, have Randy out in front with Mike behind him. Let Randy get a little bit of a lead, and Mike can actually hold the other guys back and perhaps give Randy that gap he's going to need late in the race.
PTG team principal Tom Milner said to me earlier today, all is fair in love and war, and he said this isn't love. So watch for the black, white and red machines to push through, but they've got a hard task because the Audis have looked strong this weekend and Pobst has been very fast. David Farmer, who's had a very strong second half of this season, and Victor Contreras, the local driver who has the crowd on his side. There's Victor for 3R Racing, who's done a wonderful job this weekend, right behind the PTG trio. The front guys are skipping away though, Johnny.
They certainly are, but again, you know what? One of the things that guys have been wary of all weekend long is what tire wear is going to be like. And they're noticing, you know, again, we've got a lot of laps we're going to have to run here. And I think a lot of the drivers, a guy like Hans Stuck that we're riding with right now, they're smart enough to know that at the end of the race, if you've got tires, you can make up so much ground on those cars in front of you if they've run off their tires.
PTG order is Bill Oberlin, Boris Said and Hans Stuck. We were just riding with Hans there. Let's take a look at the replay of the start though.
Boy, I tell you what, you watch those Audis, just the way they jump. I mean, they could be second, third, fourth row, and they should be leading in every first corner. A lot of tight racing right there going in the corner. Oh, Farmer came down on him. Looks like Tom Oates in one of the other Corvettes got a very good start as well.
For Tiger Racing at the moment though, it's Randy Pobst with a 1.5 second lead over his teammate Michael Gallardi. As Johnny mentioned earlier, this is perfect. This is the perfect scenario so far for those guys at Champion Audi. The first victory at the previous round at Road Atlanta, and boy, with an Audi team and Audi Sport North America pumped for that. They needed it. It came at the best possible time of the season. Randy Pobst, not only the championship leader, is the race leader right now.
Now, one of the things we really haven't spoken about much is we're in Puerto Rico, and it is bloody hot here. And that's not only a problem for the drivers, but for the cars as well. Braking and braking performance is going to be an issue as we get along in this race here. Car's going to be good. First 4 or 5, up to 10 laps. After that, drivers' pedals are going to be getting soft.
Victor Contreras, he's had one top 5 this year and is pushing hard. He's back there in 7th, but he's got a good shot on Hans Stuck at the moment. Boris Said just ahead. The yellow Corvette of David Farmer, then young Justin Marks. We ride with Hans now. Accelerating out of one of the tightest 2 turns, the tightest sections on this circuit, 3-4, and then they get that short run down to turn 5. But it's looking pretty smooth sailing at the moment for Randy Pobst out in front, but it's early.
Channel 273.
Superb crowd here at the Isla Grande Airport Circuit in San Juan, Puerto Rico. They are loving this weekend, and for Jorge Diaz Sr., the promoter, what a stunning job he has done. We ride with 5th place Boris Said. And Hans Stuck right behind. Making a move.
Yeah, I think that's one of those deals. I think Boris just let him go.
Yeah. We ride with Hans Stuck. We've been monitoring the gap between first place Randy Pobst and title challenger Bill Oberlin. Last time round is a big lockup from Hans. It was 5.5 seconds. Now it moves out to 6.1 seconds. Randy Pobst in the lead. Bill Oberlin is in 4th. Here is our race leader.
And doing an amazing job. Now what Randy's got to do is he's got to concentrate on being smooth as he can, using the car, but also counting laps. I mean, he's hopefully getting the gap between himself and Bill Oberlin. You know, McClure back there really is kind of, he doesn't matter so much. And I'm sure Randy is asking for all the information he can get with each and every lap. But right now he's looking very strong.
Great to see Phil McClure up there in third. Remember that Phil missed a race meeting, had that huge crash at Road America. The team built this new car and did an amazing job to do it in very short space of time. And it'd be nice for Phil to round the season out on the podium.
Well, it's a shame too, because I mean, if you take away Road Atlanta and Laguna Seca, where he did not get results, one because he didn't start Laguna Seca, I mean, he's right there with Pobst and Oberlin is one of these guys that's been at the top and on the podium almost every race.
Problems for the 53 here. Mike Hartley in the Viper. And will this bring out our first full course caution? Car is on fire. The safety crew will have to go to work pretty swiftly.
You know, when they first showed him getting in there, it almost looked like that right front brake caliper was on fire.
At the moment, it's a local yellow only, but this could be what BMW need as far as a full course caution, if at all it comes out and bunches the field back up. Let's take a look at a replay of what happened to Hartley.
Well, hard to see, but I mean, that is definitely coming from the right front wheel well. Locks up the brakes. Yeah,
whoa.
No, that's something pretty serious on fire right there.
And you come back to where we are right now, and thankfully Mike's all right. He was able to get out. Not exactly quickly, but he is out of the car and safe. We go back on board with Boris Said. Victor Contreras has moved ahead of Boris.
You know, Boris is one of these guys, and people might be wondering, where the heck has Boris been all year? Because he is a talent. And I tell you what, he must have walked under a ladder or something before the season started, because you go back to Sebring, before the very first race, he's going down pit lane, somebody spins into him and wipes out his car. He's just had rotten luck this year, and it continues. He actually was the quickest of all the PTG guys in qualifying, did a really strong job, and you know, they're definitely not the type of results we're used to seeing out of Boris Said happening here.
Ryan, what do you have for us?
Down here in the champion Audi pit, Kevin Wheeler, who's the crew chief for Randy Pobst, looking intently at the timing screen here. I know he's been talking to him on the radio. We'll see if we can get a word with him. Says just a second, he's got to talk to his driver. I know that when that yellow, the potential of that yellow came out, they had a lot of concerned looks on their faces. I'm not sure they wanted to see it or not. Kevin, you guys want to see a full course yellow, or are you going to let them run? You got a car that'll stay out there?
No, right now we got a car that's running pretty good, and we don't want a yellow. Give everybody a chance to catch back up. Right now we're in clean track. Randy's running well, and the car's staying under him, so we're really happy.
You give him a pace to run, or do you just turn him loose?
We just turned him loose right now, and Oberlin seems to be falling back just slowly. He's our main contention for the championship. So right now we set him at a pace. We told him don't run it any harder, save the car. So if we need to, we have more later.
And Johnny, for perhaps the viewers who haven't seen the whole Speed GT Championship this year, explain why Kevin Wheeler would say the car is staying under him. The car is good at the moment.
Well, it's a good point, Lee, in that, you know, one of the things that we've seen consistently from these Audis, again, it's a new car for them this year, is that they can be very quick for 5-10 laps, but then they fall off, they work off the tires. And what we're seeing here as the season has gone on, they've learned the car better, but also Randy and Mike have learned the car better, and right now we're seeing the results of it. They're able to not only get to the front, but they stay there.
Riding with Boris Said, looking at local hero Victor Contreras, who's having a great run in 6th at the moment. He is the top placed rookie in the race. He's 2nd in the rookie points battle at the moment. Thomas Oates leads that way in Tiger Racing in his Corvette. Thomas is a little further down the order in 12th.
You know, one thing, if I were to take a guess at what's going on with Boris right now, where he's suffering, I'd say it's brakes. And the reason I say that is he's grabbing his gears very early in the brake zone. That's something a driver will do to help save their brakes.
Pope still has a very, very healthy margin over Bill Oberlin, 1st to 4th. The gap has grown to nearly 8 seconds. So the race is certainly going Audi's way at the moment. And so far, nowhere near the action we thought we'd get.
Only on Speed.
Don't forget, 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. right here on Speed Channel. Autofocus, different shows each night where the cars are the stars. Autofocus, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Speed. Back at Puerto Rico, the Isla Grande Airport circuit. It's Randy Pobst who leads the way from teammate Michael Galati. It's an Audi 1-2 from 3R Racing, the Coors Corvette for Phil McClure, then Orbel Stuck, the Porsche for Victor Contreras, then Justin Marks is 7th, David Farmer is 8th, and Boris Said has dropped to 9th.
With an obvious problem too. I mean, you can see it going into the corners. He just can't attack. You know, one of the things when you build a temporary circuit like this, you've got to do things to keep guys from dropping wheels on the corners. And one of the things we've got to watch is at the apexes of these corners, they've laid some really heavy alligator strips. As we watch David Farmer go through turn 1, maybe we'll pick him up. Right there's Boris. And the guys have told me that these things are so aggressive, but they've got to hit them hard to do a good lap. Well, what happens sometimes is you pull them up, and there's a bolt that'll be remaining there. And so a bunch of teams have had punctures throughout the weekend. This is our first chance really to see how these curves are going to work in race condition.
Brian, do you have more on Boris's situation?
Absolutely, and Johnny, it may not have been the rumble strips, we don't really know, but what he's reporting is a driveline vibration. Something in the drivetrain of that car is beginning to shake, and if he's been on any of those curbs or those rumble strips, that could be the problem. Of course, it could just be wear and tear also. It's a very demanding circuit, and you got a lot of wheel spin trying to put the power down coming off these corners.
Well, you can see right there, Boris still using those, and you add that extra foot and a half to your line through a corner, it makes a significant amount of difference to your overall lap time, but it is hard on the car.
Well, last time round, whether traffic played a hand in this or not, Galati and McClure closed the gap considerably on Randy Pobst. Still the same order, they seem to be reeling our race leader in.
Yeah, and as they get into traffic, that's going to make life a little bit more difficult for Randy as Galati gets close. The guy that really you've got to keep a good eye on is this fellow right here, Phil McClure. And it was interesting because the very first session that these guys went out on Friday, that car, that Corvette, looked measurable. Wasn't going through the bumps well, wasn't doing anything right. I think it's mid-pack. Right now, it seems that 3R team has gotten this Corvette stronger every single time, and it's good to see Phil McClure running towards the front again.
Now, while this car is owned by Phil McClure, speaking with Tim Weens, who is the co-owner of 3R Automotive, he was saying their plans for 2004, at the moment they have 1 Corvette, 3 Porsches. Their plans next year are to run 2 Corvettes and 2 Porsches. Quite likes it. We look at Bill Orbelin, second in the series points at the moment, and needs to be a lot closer to Randy Pobst.
Looking back from Hans right now, and I think right now, actually, Hans is probably the strongest of all the BMWs. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not they let him pass Bill Oberlin so he can fight for position. You know, you never want to be told to, and then we see.
Uh-oh, Boris has come to a stop.
Yeah.
Boris has come to a stop. And this is going to bring out a full course caution.
Yeah, boy, you know, I don't like that. You know, it brings out the conspiracy theories in everybody. You know, did he stop it right there to close the gap? Because if it goes full course caution, it is definitely going to help Bill Oberlin get up to that. And you know darn well Randy Pobst is hating this.
So Boris Said sits motionless. The car does anyway. And telling the corner workers he cannot move. He can't go anywhere. 14 laps into this 36-lap race. We ride with teammate Hans Stuck.
So far, no full course caution. You know, I spoke to Hans last night, and he told me when he went out for qualifying, he only did 2 to 3 laps. His whole reason for doing that, so that his tires would be strongest at the end of the race. I think the other PTG guys might have used a couple more laps. I know that Billy did. And so towards the end of this race, I'd expect Hans to be the strongest of all of them.
Here's more on Boris, Brian.
Well, Johnny, you know, you talk about the conspiracy theory. I went to Tom Milner, who's the head of PTG, and I said, that's kind of a convenient place to stop. And he looked at me and very seriously said, no, everything, it's just locked up. It won't move. Now, Johnny, you've never spun and, like, sat with your foot on the brake in the middle of the racetrack, so they would throw full course yellow, have you?
Okay, well, as we see the lights starting to come on the pace car, it looks like they're considering it, Brian. You know what? You do what you got to do, and you know, that is a rather inconvenient place for Boris to park.
Well, if he does have some brake problems, and we do go full course caution. Full course caution for the first time in the race, and this is exactly what these guys on screen, particularly the first BMW M3, wanted. This will bring the field together and make things very interesting indeed. I was just about to say, remember at Sebring, Boris had that same situation right before the race where the car locked up. They had to get a flatbed out there, pick him up, take him back to pit lane.
Exactly.
So it's not the first time it's happened.
Yeah, you know what? It's just the the pessimist in me just makes you wonder whether or not what's really going on here. But again, bad luck for Puerto. He's had a rotten season. Now, just grouping everyone up though, that's not a guarantee that these BMWs are going to be able to run down to Randy Pobst down.
Time to take a quick break from Puerto Rico while we sort things out here. The crowd are enjoying it. Hope you are too. We'll be back.
Oh, the weather outside is frightening.
10:30 p.m. each and every Tuesday right here on Speed Channel. Stay up to date with everything in the two-wheeled world with Two-Wheel Tuesday. Host Greg White. That's each Tuesday, 10:30 p.m. right here on Speed. Back at the beautiful Isla Grande circuit here in San Juan, Puerto Rico, still under caution. Time now to talk to Hans Stuck. Hello, Hans Stuck. This is Lee Diffie in the Speed Announce booth. How are things going out there?
Actually, it's a bit boring today because not much to overtake. I'm hanging in behind Bill to protect him for his chances for the championship. My brother Boris is out, unfortunately, so I'm not sure. The pace car was good for the Audi, so they can save the tires. We'll see what we can do for the rest of the race. I hope they enjoy the show, guys.
Any chance you guys, you and Bill, can catch those Audis, Hans?
If everything runs normal, I would doubt it, but you can be sure we try our best.
All right, good stuff. Have a good end. Have a good second half of this race. Thanks, Hans. Hans Stuck there as we get ready to go back to racing shortly. Pace car pulls off. Randy Pobst leads this field. What do PTG BMW have for the two champion Audis? We go back to racing. Look at Phil McClure. He's pouncing, looking for an inside run on Michael Galati. Can't quite get it.
Well, that was totally Galati protecting Randy. There was no move there by Mike to try to get by Randy. This is all about protecting Randy Pobst, Manufacturers and Drivers Championship.
And with a brand new car first season in, it would be a magnificent accomplishment for Audi and champion racing to achieve that. Look at this, the BMWs are right there now. This is the closest we've seen them in a while. Orbelin first one in the line, then Hans Stuck. 5 cars at the front, nice and close together.
This is the high-speed kink, one of the trickier corners on the racetrack. Very, very fast corner, but now, boom, hard on the brakes. Ooh, Hans taking a peek there at Billy.
Whoa.
That surprises me.
Pobst, Galati, McClure, Orbelin with the lights on now, and Hans Stuck. Great drive by Victor Contreras, back in 6th place, and we've lost the 76 of John Barassa.
Hard to tell where he's at, whether or not this might bring out another caution, but right now Randy Pobst is looking really strong. Phil McClure could challenge him, but he's got to get close enough to Galati to really aggressively throw a move in there.
Let's not forget, too, that Phil wants to consolidate that 3rd spot in the championship. That's where he sits right now. His task was made a little easier when Mike Fitzgerald, who was only 1 point behind him, did not start this race. Audi, Corvette, and 2 BMWs make up the top 5. And so far, the day is going perfectly for Pobst and Orbelin sideways.
I mean, he's using everything he can, throwing the car in, catching it, but again, he also might be having to work harder because he did more laps yesterday in qualifying, so that you know, the tires that you qualify on are the tires that you have to race. So in qualifying, it really places a premium on doing as few laps as possible.
And if he can stay close enough to Phil McClure, if McClure pounces on Galati, watch for Orbelin, but there's a big gap there now between he and I think Hans Stuck's going to come through. He does. Stuck comes through on the inside.
And the reason to do that is because Hans is stronger right now. Okay, everyone's thinking Drivers Championship, Manufacturers Championship is the one that really counts. They were hoping Billy could get the job done, but you could just see how hard he's fighting. So now you have to send Hans and let Hans go get it done.
Well, you were in that situation just recently at Road Atlanta in the American Le Mans Series. All the pressure on you guys for Corvette to win the manufacturer's title. How does it feel?
It's a whole lot of pressure. In our situation, all we had to do is finish 3rd. Right here, Hans Stuck has got to get to the front, bully his way by McClure, bully his way by Galati, and get the lead.
Problems for David Farmer. This looks like on the restart. Whoa. And that was with Barassa, so that sorts out that situation. With John, he went off and he went straight into the rear of David Farmer.
A lot of damage to that Corvette. And how does something like that happen again after a long time out there? These brakes, they can boil, they can, you know, you lose your brake pedal. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not what happened there for Barassa.
23 laps down already of this 36-lap race, and it's still Audi 1 and 2, the way it has been from the green. Brian.
Down here with Boris Said. Obviously, Boris waving to the fans up there. Johnny O'Connell says you must have walked under a ladder at the beginning of the year. Bad luck.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad the year's over. I mean, I have a great car to drive, the BMW M3. Performance Friction's given us great brakes all year, and BMW Financial giving us a lot of support, but I've just been snake bit. Things breaking, me crashing, you know, unusual things, and it's just disappointing. But I tell you, Mr. Diaz did a great job promoting this race. I mean, for a first-time street race, it's a great track. The fans are out here, they're great. The beaches are great, the food's great. I mean, Puerto Rico's great. So I'll be at the beach later this afternoon.
And the conspiracy theorists among us, did the car lock up, or you wouldn't have stopped it on the racetrack just so your teammates could catch up under a full course yellow, would you?
I was trying to get back to the pits, and I'm pretty mad about the SCCA. I mean, they left me in a dangerous spot for 3 laps, and I kept telling them that, you know, the rear end was locked up, and they pulled both ends of my car off trying to move it. They wouldn't listen, so, you know, they've been making calls against me all year long, and I'm not going to say anything because I don't have anything nice to say about the SCCA, but it's been disappointing how inconsistent their officiating has been all year.
Obviously very frustrating for Boris Ed the entire season, and it ends the way it started. Frustration, Lee?
Yeah, it certainly does, and his teammates are not making any ground on the 2 Audis. Certainly Stuck is closer to McClure. We'll see if he can close that gap when we return.
Today.
We return to the Isla Grande Airport circuit here in San Juan, Puerto Rico. You're looking at the 2 champion Audis, the RS6s, brand new cars this season. A lot of work, a lot of development, a lot of headaches, and sometimes some heartache involved in these cars. But at the tail end of the season, there's been a lot of joy, and none higher than at the most recent round at Road Atlanta, where Randy Pobst drove to his first victory in this new car this year, and it's exactly the medicine that Audi needed.
Very much so, and again, they've been developing this car all season long. I think really one guy who struggled a little bit, as we see Juan starting to close in on Phil McClure, but one of the things that's been difficult for Mike Galati is adapting to this new car. He had developed a certain style for the old Audi, and I think he really had to change his style, whereas Randy Pobst had never driven the Quattro car, and so I think it was a little bit easy for him to adapt. I know Audi's very pleased with the way both drivers have performed, and I'm pretty darn certain we're going to see both guys back next year.
Riding with Hans Stuck, chasing McClure, and I think he might be able to get him too before this one's done. Hans has been making some good progress. This track designed by Martin Thake, constructed by Martin Thake, who worked for a long time with Kart.
Well, again, you hear it. Whenever we go on board, you listen to these guys, you know, normally when you're doing your downshifting, you want to wait a little bit in your braking zone because you don't want to, you know, chance over revving your engine. And right now you see all these guys getting their gears early to help slow themselves down.
And this is the closest that Hans Stuck has been to Phil McClure. Look at this. Hans gets a nice run off that turn.
That Chevy torque, you can really see when it kicks in, just the way that McClure pulls off the corner. But right now, Phil's really having to watch both in front of him and behind him. And when you've got a guy with the talent that Hans Stuck has right behind you, you know there's a really good chance that you're going to get challenged sooner or later.
And from the first practice session earlier this weekend, Hans Stuck gave this new circuit the thumbs up. He said that, yeah, there are some aspects to it that are quite tight, some turns and some areas that are quite tight, but he said it really involves and requires a lot of precision from the driver. And he said he liked that. You
know, and it was funny because so many times you look at a racetrack like this, it's so darn fast, and then you have these chicane areas which don't really blend. They don't flow too well because it's literally 90 degrees right, 90 degrees left, and it's a very open exit. but it just doesn't have the rhythm and flow that a lot of guys normally are looking for. Juan sees it as a challenge. You know, he thinks that those tough areas are the areas where the difference between being a good classic driver is going to make the difference to a fast lap versus a guy who's really a throw and a catch more type guy.
Pobst, Galati, McClure, Stuck and Oberlin. The top 5 remain the same. Then we've got 3 rookies with Contreras, Kevin Chambers, who got a dynamic start earlier in the race, and Thomas Oates running in 8th, poised to clinch that Rookie of the Year title. Brian.
Well, Dax Robb is the crew chief for Phil McClure. And Dax, it looked like early on you were the only guys that had a car that maybe could contend with the Audis, but now he's got to be looking in the mirror too.
Yeah, the BMWs are right on our tail now after that yellow, so hopefully we can shake them off and put some pressure on Galati, and they'll maybe wear their brakes out and we can pass them in the end.
Is it tires or brakes the biggest concern for you guys?
Brakes were earlier, but we made some changes and they've been holding up well, so we think maybe our rear tires might go away. We're hoping not, though.
Well, Johnny, you said it, the big torque in that Corvette coming off this corner is wheel spin is a concern. You get that wheel spin, you wear out those rear tires.
Yeah, but Brian, the one thing, they have improved the handling. I mean, you really have to tip your hat to the 3R guys, because not only are they working on the Corvette, but they're working on Porsches as well, and they've really got this new Corvette hooked up well.
This event sponsored by Coors, and the Coors Corvette doing a nice job in 3rd place. Under 8 laps remaining here in San Juan. Stay with us. Back at Puerto Rico, the final race of the year in the SCCA Speed World Challenge, the Speed GT Championship, and how things changed so dramatically at the last round at Road Atlanta. The favorite to take the double, the Touring Car Championship and the GT Championship, Bill Oberlin, it all turned around. And that graphic on screen just shows you how amazingly consistent Randy Pobst has been this year. He's led twice as many laps as Bill Oberlin. Kicked off the year with 5 consecutive podiums, then had some misfortune back-to-back at Infineon Raceway and at Road America, then got back on track at Laguna with a 3rd and then winning at Road Atlanta. So consistency has been the key there.
Well, I mean, anytime you see a guy that has led more than half the laps during the season, you know, compared to any other driver out there, I mean, that's the guy that you do think should be the champion. He's been the dominant force, and really, but for those early races where they were still developing this car and they were having handling problems, he really has been the dominant car and dominant team. The champion guys have really stepped up, answered the call that BMW, you know, really was trying to lay on them mid-season. I mean, we go back to mid-season and it was all BMW. The champion guys have really answered the call.
And it's a shame that Mike Fitzgerald didn't make the grid in this one after blowing an engine yesterday, because Victor Contreras, the rookie, is running a very strong 6th. Been interesting to see where Mike came out in the mix in this one. Pressure has been released somewhat on Phil McClure. That gap has opened up now over Hans Stuck. And a podium is just 6 laps away for McClure to end the season on a high note.
You know, and as we watch Galati here, Lee, I guarantee you right now, his whole sole purpose in this race is to protect Randy Pobst. Let him have every opportunity to win the championship so that it stays in the champion camp. And with, of course, Galati winning the championship last year, you know, it's got to be very frustrating for him to be champion, come in here, have the type of season that he has, and a lot of failures really weren't his own doing.
Brian, what do you have for us?
Well, Michael Galati is not the only frustrated guy around. Dave Gahagan, the crew chief for Bill Oberlin. Now, Dave, you guys have had some of the highest highs and the lowest low probably at Atlanta this past weekend. Do you guys have anything at all for the Audis if you get another full course yellow?
It's hard to say. I mean, we kind of didn't expect them to hold out this long. They got their stuff together for this race.
Yeah, you can see the frustration on the part of Dave's face. It's like you said, Johnny, all year long, they've been heavy, they faded in the end, but it doesn't look like it today.
They are staying on it and staying strong right to the end of this one. We are in the closing stages, the final Speed GT race of the year. We'll take you to the checkered flag after this.
He's put together.
The crowd has been wonderful so far this weekend. Quite a traffic jam getting in here this morning. The place is packed, and from what we hear, it is a sellout, and they will all witness Randy Pobst, if he can hang in there for just a few more laps, clinch the Drivers and Manufacturers title in the Speed GT Championship. He continues to lead from teammate Michael Galati, and what a nice way that will be for them to finish the season off with an Audi 1-2.
As we watch these two cars here, I can't help but think, you know, we're seeing the BMW struggle a little bit. Okay, we're coming off back-to-back race weekends here as we watch Tom Oates going around. He is the rookie points leader. But, you know, with PTG having to prepare 4 cars, champion only 2, that's a whole lot more responsibility on the PTG guys. And sometimes, you know, that can weaken the whole program. Oates, of course, have been having an amazing season, running really strong here.
Reports, too, that Randy Pobst may have some problems. That's what we are hearing, so this could be an interesting end. A rather correction on that, it was Thomas Oates who was running into some problems. The car was leaking coolant.
Which would explain why he had his windshield wiper going.
And that gap now has opened right up further back within this top 5, back to Phil McClure, back to Hans Stuck, and then Bill Auberlen. Still 2 rookies running together, Contreras and Chambers. Tim Weens has moved up to 8th, Justin Marks running 9th, and Tony Gaples rounding out the 10.
Everybody pretty much holding position right here. You know what's surprising to me, though, is that these cars still towards the end of the race here, we've only got a few laps left, still are doing laps in the 109s and 110s, which really I would not have expected. Certainly, you know, from the Audis who we've seen chew up tires so badly throughout the season, very few times have the cars at the end of the race been able to run the lap time that they have at the beginning. And right now we're seeing that out of Pobst, out of McClure and Stuck. They're all still running very strong.
Ryan, do you have something on Randy?
They are still running strong, but the nerves are tight down here. Pobst called in last lap. He said, I'm starting to smell fluids in the car. He was concerned. The crew walked out to the wall and looked. They don't see anything, but in those last laps of a race, when you're about to win, not only the race, but the championship, you start to hear, feel, and in this case, smell everything, right, Johnny?
You know, it's funny that you brought that up because, you know, during Petit Le Mans, I'm running and I'm starting to pick up some smell, and I'm wondering if it's my car. About a lap or so later, I catch up to a guy who's throwing out some fluid and blowing some smoke, and it was him. But you're always cautious as you get into these races. Is it you or is it me?
1 lap to go before champion Audi not only clinch the driver's title for Randy Pobst and the manufacturers, but pick up their first 1-2 of the year. And what a way to do it at the most important race of the year, as Randy Pobst is on his way home. He's won SCCA national titles, he's won Super Touring titles, and this one will be a special one, that's for sure. As Randy is bringing it home, he's on the backside of the circuit now. Half a lap to run. Whoa, the Viper gets out of shape, way out of shape. The 0-2 of Adel Al Sayed finally brings it under control. Bit of a hairy last lap for him.
You know, he'd given a little bit of room for Galati. Big mistake going through that fast kink, got offline, probably lifted, and that's what got him going.
We saw how pumped the champion Audi team were and all of the Audi Sport North America workers were at Road Atlanta with their first win. Well, what about this one? Randy Pobst takes it to a championship in Puerto Rico. Sensational stuff for Pobst and the RS6 and the champion Audi squad. And disappointment on the other side of the fence for BMW. There's Yvette, Bill Auberlen's wife. And it wasn't quite the race that Billy wanted. But Audi simply were too strong this weekend. what a way they have finished the season. Back-to-back wins.
Well, you know what? I got to tell you, these champion guys, they've got so much experience that rivals the PTG group. Of course, they've been competing against each other in sports car racing for so long. But really this year, the guys at Audi, the folks at Audi, did their homework. They gave a great car to the champion team, who have just taken it further, developed it more and more, and that's how you win championships.
And a 1-2. Pobst Galati. There's Rod Bymaster and Mike Peters. Great stuff. A lot of hard work has gone into this RS6 project. Pobst is the man, and his teammate Michael Galati following him home. Wonderful work by those guys. As always, when we return from this short break, we will hear from our race winner, who incidentally just happens to be our new champion, Randy Pobst. He's had an amazing year, and he's finished it in the best possible way. Brian is in pit lane standing by, and we'll hear from the champion after this.
Driver of the quarter.
Speed Channel's coverage of the Speed GT Championship is brought to you by Toyo Tires, known for performance, tires that fit you. Wonderful crowd here in Puerto Rico, and boy, are they going to celebrate in champion Audi, Brian. Great scenes down there.
Oh, absolutely, Lee. You know, last week he was standing on the door. This week he's standing on the roof, and Randy Pobst, 2 in a row, but more important than that, it wraps up the Drivers' Championship for you and the Manufacturers' Championship for Audi.
Te quiero, Puerto Rico! I'm just really amazed that Champion Racing pulled this one off with the Audi RS6. It is one hell of a car. The four-wheel drive really helped us off the corners. Uh-oh. And let's just hit it all you can.
I think we got some heat down here. We're gonna let Randy sit down. He's hot. He's gonna get something to drink. It is hard on these guys. They ran hard all race long. We're gonna give him back to his crew, guys. Lee?
Whoa, that's been a hard one for Randy. That's for sure. It's hot here in Puerto Rico. Let's take a look at the results. The Audi 1-2. Stunning stuff from those guys, and nice to see Phil McClure on the podium, finishing the year in a very strong way. And Victor Contreras giving the local crowd something to cheer about, finishing in 6th. That's almost his best result of the season. As we wind down through the field, and Boris said, who was at the center of that full course caution, coming in 18th position. Johnny, your thoughts?
Well, I tell you what an amazing season. But really, the guy that really dominated is the guy that won the championship, and that's Randy Pobst. I mean, he's got to be very proud. What a workout it is. You have no idea how hot and humid it is. You can see how hot Randy is right now, getting cooled off. But again, an amazing job, not just by them, but you got to tip your hat to Bill Auberlin, Hans Stuck, all the PTG guys. One guy I really wish had better luck, Phil McClure. I think he's one of the stars of this season. He was always strong, and as the only real strong Corvette out there, they did an amazing job, especially on a team that usually runs Porsches.
Well, look at just how hot Randy Pobst is. He definitely worked incredibly hard. Let's have a look at the points. This is how it will finish after the rounds this year. 24 the margin, Pobst over Auberlin. McClure's final podium consolidated that spot in the top 3, and Hans Stuck and Mike Fitzgerald. Sadly, as we mentioned, Mike didn't start the race today, and that did cost him somewhat. Boris said 6th ahead of his younger teammate Justin Marks, and Michael Galati nudging into the top 10 there as well after somewhat of a frustrating season.
And Thomas Oates, of course, getting Rookie of the Year, so congratulations to him.
He's done a nice job in the Tiger Racing Corvette, and Randy's on his way to recovery. Rehydrating with plenty of water in these humid conditions down here in Puerto Rico. And the crowd has been something else. Take a look at this. There's cruise ships everywhere, and a wonderful atmosphere here. We're not too far from Old San Juan as well, and it's just been some weekend to remember.
They've got so much to be proud of here in Puerto Rico. Great place to end the season, and a great race, and a wonderful crowd. My goodness, it's been good all around.
Again, we must compliment Jorge Diaz Sr., the promoter of this race, the dad of Jorge Jr., the driver. This was his dream, his vision, and it's been well, it's come to fruition, and he should be very proud of his accomplishments. Track that already Martin Thake knows that where he can make some amendments for next year. And Randy Pobst, a champion again, and this one will be a very special one for champion Audi and that RS6. Built entirely in Pompano Beach, Florida, that team have a reason to celebrate. Don't forget our Year in Racing show. You can catch that in December, and that will cover the highlights of what's been a pretty exciting 2003 Speed GT Championship. On behalf of Brian Till, Johnny O'Connell, I'm Lee Diffie. Thanks for joining us this year, and on behalf of everyone for Speed, well done, Randy.